Kenny Atkinson is the worst.
Warriors, Curry steps to his left again. Won't keep him down long. As in this game, 11 of 31 from three. Another triple. 15th point on 17 shots. 6 three-pointer. And he's just swimming along. Draymond. Steph.
As I was saying, Kenny Atkinson is the worst thing that could have happened to Steve Kerr's career. This is how you shut down the league.
Night-night! That's it!
With Kenny Atkinson assuming head coaching duties in Steve Kerr's absence, the Warriors looked like men amongst boys as they crushed the Utah Jazz. Oh, and what's this about Klay Thompson being open to a reduced role? Hey, what's happening, everyone? This is Swish Culture, and I'm here documenting the resurgence of the Golden State Warriors as a title contending team. 5 wins in a row, with 4 out of the 5 being blowouts, has solidified this team as a title contender. Klay Thompson is slowly coming around after letting the media know that he is willing to accept a different role on the team, something which would be historic if it did, and it would take this team to another level. Something we saw last night. It is no longer wishful thinking to discuss the Warriors as being in contention. This team is clearly far and above more talented than the lower half of the league and has enough depth to outlast and compete against top-tier teams like the Nuggets. But not just to compete, but to win. So, how are the Warriors just so good at shutting down the NBA? Oh, we'll get to that. But first, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Swish Culture for the most analytical and entertaining NBA content on the planet. Now get ready. You're about to get swished. Steve Kerr has been the Warriors head coach for the last 10 years, so whenever an opportunity presents itself for his assistant to lead the team, things tend to get interesting. Considering the fact that the Warriors have been on a tear the past couple of weeks, that adds yet another layer of mystique to a team that through most of the season seemed destined for the NBA lottery. Before Kenny Atkinson, there were 3 separate occasions where the Warriors assistant coach had to step in for Steve Kerr. The first instance was back in 2015 at the start of his second year as head coach. After just 2 days of getting posted up by Draymond Green, Kerr had to take an indefinite leave of absence to rehabilitate his back.
What? Posted up by Draymond Green?
Yeah, wasn't that what happened?
No, he'd been having problems since the 2015 finals.
What, was he partying too hard?
Must have been. But it definitely started well before training camp. Probably partied too hard after the finals, and then Draymond posting him up in training camp did him in.
Okay, well, whatever it was. 2 days after training camp, Steve Kerr took a leave of absence and didn't return until January 22nd. During his absence, assistant coach Luke Walton, now an assistant coach for the Cleveland Cavaliers, went 39-4 to start the season. A stellar record by any stretch of the imagination and the greatest start to a regular season in the history of the sport. Steve Kerr returned after 43 games, which is more than half the season by the way, and received credit for the season in its entirety. After Walton's performance, however, he didn't stay long as the Lakers saw an opportunity to scoop Luke Walton up from under Kerr and give him a full-time role coaching in LA. This made room for former Cavaliers head coach Mike Brown to become Steve Kerr's #1 assistant. After Walton went 39-4 to start the season, Kerr finished with 34-5. Following Kerr's rehab, and this time during the 2017 playoffs, Kerr again had back issues. This is just about a year and a half after his initial back issues, so pay attention to the timeline. In Kerr's absence, Mike Brown took the reins and again in the playoffs coached the Golden State Warriors to a 13-0 record. Kerr returned for Game 2 and went 3-1 to win the NBA Finals for a final tally of 16-1 playoff record. Again, due to COVID, on May 9th of 2022, Mike Brown stepped in a second time for Steve Kerr. This time in a semifinals matchup in the Western Conference and Game 4 versus the Grizzlies. The Warriors, won that game as well. Fast forward to February of 2024, and due to unfortunate circumstances, the Warriors assistant coach Dejan Milojevic tragically passed away a couple of weeks ago, and Steve Kerr attended his funeral, which was held on a day the Warriors had to face off against a tough Utah Jazz team. Up to this point, the Warriors had been 53-5 in games coached by anyone other than Steve Kerr since the beginning of his tenure in 2014. This is what happened. At the game tip-off, the Warriors started their usual five-man lineup: Steph, Klay, Wiggins, Kuminga, and Draymond. Nothing was noticeably different just yet, but most knew that Kenny Atkinson was behind the wheel. This was the hot seat and Atkinson's moment to shine or regress into obscurity. Klay Thompson again, as he did in the game against the Pacers, got off to a hot start, but something was different. The Jazz managed to keep pace for all of the first 4 minutes. Klay had a hand in the Warriors' first 3 buckets as the Warriors began to assert their dominance over Utah. A 14-9 lead developed, but then exploded to 28-17 with 3 minutes left in the first quarter. The Warriors were up by 11, and Utah looked hopeless. Some key adjustments by Atkinson in the first quarter had stunned the Jazz. Kuminga was not having his best night attacking the paint, and Klay had cooled off, both of whom were replaced at the 7-minute mark by GP2 and Pods, which led to pandemonium and chaos as the Warriors fired on all cylinders. Wiggins, GP2, Pods, and Steph all combined on a run that put the Jazz on notice. The Jazz responded with Talen Horton-Tucker and Jordan Clarkson, both of whom proceeded to have their way in the paint as Pods and Kuminga especially had trouble staying in front of THT and at the same time getting his shot attempts repeatedly blocked at the rim. THT and Clarkson managed to recover some ground for the Jazz, but the Warriors still led 34-26 at the end of the first quarter. The second quarter adjustment from the Jazz was really 36-year-old head coach Will Hardy seeing the current weaknesses in the Warriors squad and exploiting it. Saric was put in, and with Kuminga's rough night continuing, the Jazz bullied their way back, tying the game at 39 and even taking a brief 2-point lead while Saric was on the floor. This happened around the 6-minute mark, and Atkinson responded. Draymond came back in the game for Saric, and the Warriors retook a lead they would never again relinquish. The Warriors closed the first half with Curry, Moody, Pods, Wiggins, and Draymond, where they methodically dismantled the Utah Jazz, and a half-court buzzer beater by Draymond sent the Warriors up by 8, the same lead they had at the end of the first quarter. Atkinson, now ready for any adjustment the Jazz made for the third quarter, went to his original starting 5. The starting lineup managed to get a lead on the Jazz before the same exact rotations came in, with GP2 and Pods replacing Klay and Kuminga at around the 7-minute mark, providing more facilitating in the lineup. Wiggins began to cook. After getting the lead up by 14, the Jazz again went to Horton-Tucker. That's when Atkinson went live, taking Trayce Jackson-Davis off the bench and finally giving the Warriors some rim protection to close the third. After a back-and-forth battle, TJD made his presence felt. After losing their double-digit lead, the Warriors gained a head of steam and closed out the third quarter up by 13 points. It felt inevitable that TJD would start the fourth. The Warriors had to keep their foot on the gas if they planned to close out the Jazz. But something happened at the start of the fourth quarter. Saric came back into the game, sending TJD to the bench. The Warriors started out strong with baskets from Klay, and Klay. But this wasn't enough. There wasn't much of a deterrent on the defensive end. The Warriors lost their double-digit lead, and it was time to take decisive action. Trayce re-enters the game, and with Stephen Curry in lockstep, proceeded to absolutely demolish the Utah Jazz. Stephen Curry would launch bombs from deep, meanwhile Trayce would get inside the paint to eat. It was showtime. Draymond and Wiggins connect on an alley-oop, while Steph continued to finish yet another legendary closeout. And just when the Jazz thought the Warriors had fired the last shot, a pass from GP2 finds Klay wide open at the wing, but he doesn't have much time. Markkanen was closing in fast. Quick thinking, or rather just reflex at this point, kicked in, and with a slight glance from Klay in Curry's direction, Markkanen came to a screeching halt, floundering even, to make sure that Stephen Curry did not get the ball. The very real risk of Stephen Curry, who's been cooking for the last 4 minutes, getting the pass, was mentally more detrimental to the Jazz then the ball was already in the hands of one of the greatest shooters to ever play the game. Klay hits the dagger. A long ball three that sent a message to the Utah Jazz and the entire league that this wasn't just an improved Warriors team. This was an awakening. In just 4 minutes, from the 6-minute to the 2-minute mark, the Warriors went from a 9-point lead to a 23-point explosion. It was a blowout. Yet another in the long line of blowouts the Warriors have been having, putting them at 7-1 in their last 8 games. For Klay, this was clearly mind over matter as he finished the night as the leading scorer with 26 points on 11 of 19 from the field. Curry finished with 25 points and 10 assists, a double-double and a plus 30 on the night, but he didn't even have the highest plus-minus. Those honors went to Andrew Wiggins, who was a plus 31 and was the most valuable player of the night, going 6 of 10 from the field for 17 points and 3 of 3 from downtown. From tip to the final buzzer, the Warriors were in complete control of the game. There was never a moment where Atkinson seemed in over his head. The adjustments were precise and the impact immediate. 54 wins and 5 losses during Steve Kerr's tenure when his assistant coaches the team. I know the Warriors are doing well overall, but just realize that this team could be even better. And from a bench perspective, CP3 still isn't healthy, which we know gives guys like Saric and TJD a boost that puts them in the category of positive impact players. For TJD, that means a dominant 5 off the bench that could give you starters minutes and still be ahead on most nights. Kudos to Atkinson and a well-coached game. And kudos to Klay, who the sooner he finishes this transition into the realization of who he is, the easier the game will come to him. He still has plenty of 30-point games left, and as long as he doesn't force it, he can be a force to be reckoned with when the Warriors need him to step up. By the way, if you would like to catch my live streams, tune into my Twitch stream at Swish Culture. That's SWISHCULTURE, no spaces. They can't stop us. They can only hope to contain us. What do you think of Kenny Atkinson being the Warriors' next head coach? Post your thoughts in the comments below. But before that, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all your notifications so you don't miss any of my latest uploads. Thanks for watching. Till next time. Swish.